Today we're going to have a look at creating this game here with lots of variables involved. So let me show you the game. So it's a robot that is traveling around an imaginary coral reef, and you can see I'm collecting a score each time I collect one of these buckets. If I hit one of the rocks, the black rocks, then I restart, and if I touch this lightning, then I get extra time added on. Let me show you that again. Oh, it moved. You see it moves? Let's see if I can get there in time. Yeah, adds on some extra time, and then at the end, it will tell you what your score is. So, first of all, we need to create a new project, and we're going to give the project a name. So I'm just going to call this Coral Reef Clean Up. I'm going to call it number 1. So then we need to go into our backdrops, and I'm just going to give it a solid color. We're going to think about a kind of coral reefy, kind of blue, that kind of colour here. I'm actually going to, because there's nothing actually on the background at the moment, I'm going to create a shape. Don't worry about the black line because that will be on the outside of the actual screen. So then I've got my kind of my colour that I want. I don't need this sprite. I'm going to delete this sprite, and I'm going to add in a new sprite. I want a robot that is going to collect up the rubbish for me. Oh yeah, so this retro robot, I like this one here, so I'm going to use this retro robot. It's a bit big at the moment, as you can see, so I'm going to reduce the size down to 30, so about 30%, but you can have a play around with that value and see what you want it to do. So we're in the code. We're then going to have the event when the green flag is clicked. I want my sprite here to go to the position of x minus 200, y minus 150, and I just want it to point in the direction of 90. So now if I click the green flag, it will always go back there, back to the start basically. So what we want to do is we want the robot to follow the mouse, or the mouse pointer. So I'm going to have the forever loop in there. So forever, what I want to do is have the, sorry, I'm looking for the motion, here we are, point towards the mouse pointer, and it's going to move. Now we'll start with 10 steps and let's see what happens. So as you can see, that's very, very quick moving around. So I'm going to change that. Let me change it to 1 and then let's see what that's. I think that 1 is a bit too slow. Let's try 2 instead. So again, you just need to play around with the variables and see what you think is most effective. Okay, I think that that works, having 2 as the variable. Now, what I need to be careful of, if it's touching the mouse pointer like that, it's going to jerk around a lot. So what I need to have in there is if and then. So the if something then is going to do that. So if the distance to the mouse pointer is less than 5, so that's the operator, the green one is less than 5, and distance to mouse pointer, then it's going to move, point towards the mouse pointer and move. So let's try that again. So you can see that it's following the mouse pointer, and then if the mouse pointer touches it, it just stays still. Okay. Going around like that. Okay, that seems to be better. Now, we want to add the score in. To do that, we're going to create a new variable. So I'm just going to make a variable called score. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that the score is 0 at the beginning. So we're going to set the variable of score to 0 at the beginning. You'll see the score variable now appears on the screen. I can actually move that around if I need to, but I'm just going to make sure it's in the corner. So I've got my set score to 0. Now I need to find out a way of creating, adding on to the score each time. So I'm going to add a new sprite in. There's not really a rubbish sprite on here, but I did find there's a takeaway box, or takeout box as it's called here. So let's use that one. Again, I'm going to reduce the size of it down to 30 because it's a bit too big at the moment. So what I want to do is back on my robot sprite, if I need to have another if and then repeat loop. So then I've got my if it's touching, if the robot is touching the takeout box, it's the name of the other sprite. Then I'm going to change the score, so change that from my variable to score by 1. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So I'm moving my robot, and then when it touches it, okay, so now we've got the problem that every time it's touching it, it's adding on to the score, and I don't want that for my game. So I'm going to go, and I'm actually going to broadcast something. So I'm going to broadcast, change the score by 1, and I'm going to broadcast a new message. Let's just call this one collect 1. Okay. On my takeout sprite, I'm going to say when I receive collect 1, I want it to go to a random position. So it's just gonna move as soon as it gets there, and I'm gonna add in the pop sound as well because I quite liked that pop sound. So let's just test that and see how that works. Good. So you see how it automatically moves, plays the sound, and only changes the variable by 1. What I'm also going to do is add in a when the green flag is clicked. I just want it to go to a random position, just so it makes the game more interesting. So each time you start, it's going to a random position. Ooh. Like that. Okay. Now I want to duplicate this takeout sprite because I want it to repeat the code a few times. So I'm going to click and hold on it and duplicate it. I'm actually going to change the message it's going to receive to let me show you what happens when if not. So if I don't change that, as soon as I touch one of them, they both change. Okay, and that one doesn't do anything. So what I need to do on takeout 2, when I receive, and it's going to be collect 2. So on my retro robot, I'm just gonna duplicate this code, keeping it in the forever loop. So if touching takeout 2, then I'm gonna broadcast collect 2. Let's have a look. So that just moves that 1. It doesn't move both of them each time. Yeah. That seems to work quite well. Well, this should show it nicely. Okay, good. Okay, so you can duplicate that for as many times as you want. So you could add in, 3, 4, 5 takeout boxes. Just for this example, we're going to keep it at the 2. Now we want to put some challenge in there for our robot. So in my background, I'm going to go to the backdrops, and I'm just going to add in some black, and it does need to be the actual black because, and I'll show you why in a minute. I'm just going to add in some rocks. So I've just gone into the paint, just make it a bit random. You don't want to make it too hard for the user, but you want to have a bit of challenge in there, adding in some black rocks, as it were. So what I'm going to do now is in my robot, if it hits the rock, I want it to break apart. I want it to, look like it's been damaged. So I'm going to go onto the costumes, and I'm going to click and hold on his first costume, and I'm going to duplicate it. Now I'm going to select tool, and I want to just move things around slightly. Now you'll see it's all grouped together, and I can click this ungroup button at the top, and it will then pull apart that group, because they're all kind of grouped together a bit. I can also twist things around, so I might twist that body around a bit, ungroup it. Yeah, so you can see it looks a bit more broken now. What I want to do is, so when the robot, going back onto the code now, when the robot, if it touches the black, then it needs to change background. So I'm going to have another if then. So if, and it's touching color. This is why we needed to make sure the color was black and not kind of black. Make sure it's definitely black, so then it will work. So if it's touching black, I'm going to go to my looks, and it's going to be switch costume to robot A2. Right, let's test that out. Oops. So what I need to do is add in at the beginning, make sure that I've got my switch costume to robot A. As soon as the green flag is clicked, there we are, and then if it hits the rock, good, you'll see that it breaks. But we can carry on playing even though that happens. So we need to reset each time. So if it touches black, it switches costume to A. It then needs to go to, and we're going to go back to the start, which is minus 200, minus 150, just to make sure that it works. We're also going to make sure we point in the right direction. Let me test that out now. So the green flag, okay. Oh, what we didn't do is we didn't add in the switch costume after it's gone there. Switch costume to robot A. That's why it's really important to test your game as you're doing it. Okay, so you don't really see the robot being destroyed. So I'm going to get it to say, before it moves, after it switches, no, for 2 seconds. Let's have a look and see what that looks like. See, it says no, and then it resets back to the beginning. Okay, good, right, that works well. So I've kind of created my robot. I've added in all the things that I think I need to add in, including my score variable, and I've got a way of making points in there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a new sprite, and I want to almost kind of recharge the battery on the robot each time. And for this, I'm going to choose the lightning sprite. Again, need to reduce the size down to 30. So what we need to do is we need to have a new variable of time. So I'm going to make a new variable of time, and I'm going to make sure that at the beginning, when we set the score to 0, I'm going to set the time. Now you can change this variable. I'm going to have 30 seconds as my time that I want to have. I'm just going to move that out of the way a bit so it's not actually going to obstruct the game. So I'm going to have set the time to 30. I'm going to have another when the green flag is clicked. I'm going to add a forever loop in forever, and I just want it to wait for 1 second, and then it's going to change the time by -1. So that should, we press it, every second it counts down, every second it will reduce it by 1. Eventually though, when we get to 0, nothing is going to happen. In fact, it will keep going into negative numbers. So what I need to do is I need to have an if statement in here, still under my forever. If, and then I'm going to have I need to show that the time equals 0. So into my variable time. If the time equals 0, then I just want to stop all. Where's stop all? Here it is, under control. If the time equals 0, then I'm going to stop all. Let me just change the time to, I don't know, 5, just so we can test that out. I don't want to have it all the way down to 0. 30. Good. So when it got to 0 there, it stopped everything. I'm going to change that back to 30. It might be nice to have a way of, when you do get down to 0, telling the user what their score is. So I'm going to say here, before I stop all, I'm just going to say what their score is. Now, we've got that variable of the score, so I don't need to, I'm not going to obviously be able to type in a different thing for each time. What I can do is I can join in here, I can join your score is, you need best have a space before you do it, and then add the score variable in there. 2 seconds should be enough. Right, let me change that back down to, let me change that to 10. Oops. Okay, here we go. So 10, 9, it's coming down. So I'm getting a couple of scores. So let's have a look. So your score is 2, good, and then it stops. So I've added in the score there. I've got my battery sprite. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to tell the lightning sprite when the green flag is clicked, it's going to go to a random position. Again, I want to make the game interesting, and I want to make it go to a random position. I am going to have it wait there for 10 seconds, and then it is going to, actually I'm going to add that into a forever loop, so it's forever going to go to a random position every 10 seconds. Oh, that won't work. I need to go back to change this to 30. So let's watch it. So they've all gone to a random position, and then it should, after 10 seconds, you'll see it goes to a random position. Okay. I then want to say, on the robot, another if statement. So if it is touching the lightning bolt, it's going to broadcast another message. Let's call this new message, I don't know, battery. It's going to broadcast, so every time it touches the lightning bolt, the battery, it's going to broadcast this battery. And then on the battery, I'm going to say when I receive battery, I want it to, so it's going to change, so it's going to add more time on, so it's going to change the time by, you can change the value here, I'm going to choose 5, so then each time it gets touched, it's going to add 5 seconds on. I then want it to hide, because I want it to kind of disappear for a minute. It's then going to go to a random position. It's going to wait for a couple of seconds, and then it is going to show itself again. So let's have a look at that. So I'm going to go to it. So it disappears, and then it reappears. And you should have seen that it added on. Oh, you see, so it's a challenge.